Okay, so just helps me highlight on Twitch later when I cut these into 4 videos. But we are now going to talk about failing forward, and this is the last segment of tonight. Remember, there are a lot of different ways, different rabbit holes we could have gone down. This doesn't have to be the only thing that we cover on how to be a good player. And this one's split 50-50. You know, when I started the episode with segment 1, it's like it's about the players, about the players, about the players, and I get why it didn't happen because I did it myself, but we always kept diving into, well, you play this type of character, when it really was supposed to be more about how I talk to somebody, right? Well, segment 3 was all about the player characters. Well, this one's going to be 50-50. One question is going to be specifically about player characters. The other one's going to be about players and groups. Leave the characters out of it. So here we go. First question, and this is about failing forward. How do seasoned players handle setbacks or character failures in a productive way, and what lessons can be learned from that? And I'll start with Malachi.
Cool. Failure and setbacks, they are part of the emergent story. You roll with them. You have to go with them. If you want to be a hero, you have to have failures. Look at John McClane in Die Hard. How much did he fail? But when he succeeded, it was so.
He had to walk on glass.
Yes, because it was his fault. If I remember right.
Let the Aussie speak.
No, but you gotta roll with those punches. It makes a good story. And you read any comic book, you know, Spidey's gonna fail a couple times before he gets that big win. If you're winning all the time, it cheapens the big victories when you get them.
Okay. So I'm going to pick one here. I'm going to have you talk about what lesson can be learned from. I'll give you the easy one. What lesson can be learned from character death?
Don't do that again.
Yeah,
that's an easy one, right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, well, how did you put yourself into that situation? And if you did, you know not to do it again. You can't walk on water. You're going to drown if you wear an armor.
Okay. What about how to turn a death into something heroic? Like let the legend, so to speak, move forward. So while you may have made a new character, the bard in the group or the face character of the group, so to speak, and it's like, no, he died. It didn't happen. You died on the toilet, you know, when a dragon sat on you. But what we're going to tell everybody, because your character wasn't a douche nozzle in the group, is we're going to say that you heroically fought the dragon, you got underneath it, and you're about to thrust forward. And while you didn't get the killing blow, you saved the group because you gutted the dragon, so it only had a few breaths left. You know, well, that's a little different than sitting on you in the outhouse. But who cares? Nobody else was there. They don't need to know that. And now, you know, you guys are the heroes. And wow,
yeah, you can do that. I was thinking is like if it's combat and you're dying, don't be afraid to ask the GM if you can just really ham it up and just have a big going out, kind of like the in Savage Rifts, the rule where you can go out with style.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't be afraid to try and get to do that.
So Earth Dawn has a thing called Heathen Dog would know what it is. I think he actually used it once. Oh my god. Heroic Sacrifice, I think it's called. Where you will die. No exceptions. You will die. Yeah. But it allows you to basically just go Nova for a second. I mean, it's not exploding, but the idea there is like, okay, I'm going to die. Every last little bit is pumped into this, but I'm rolling 30 dice to make this happen. Great. So
Blaze of Glory.
There you go, Blaze of Glory. Is that what it is in Savage Worlds?
Yep. Okay. Savage Rifts.
Savage Rifts. Okay. Yeah. So we'll switch it up to Brian here. So how do seasoned players handle setbacks or character failure in a productive way, and what lessons can be learned?
Well, first off, okay, so actually, real quick, these are going to be my worst answers because I did not come up with anything ahead of time. These kind of stumped me. But the biggest thing that I've been thinking about while we're sitting here is let it happen. Okay, don't think that just because it's a bad thing that you have to eliminate it from the game. The character can die. The big bad evil guy can get away. Use those as springboards to your next story. Okay, if that ends the campaign, all of the heroes are dead. Well, you've got the launching point for a redemption story. Their descendants are coming in to rescue the relics or something along those lines. But again, the easiest lesson is, well, that didn't work. Maybe you have to treat it like a Groundhog Day kind of a situation. Okay, what are we going to try next time? How are we going to get around it? But I think the biggest lesson is just don't be afraid of failure.
So what about something like getting a bad reputation? And there's a couple different ways. Well, actually, a lot of different ways this could happen. But I just want to put two out there. One is, okay, the players try to screw over somebody they shouldn't have. And I should say characters want to screw over somebody they shouldn't have. And it didn't work so well. Or you were paid to do a mission and you fail that mission. So somehow, some way, you got on the bad side of, say, your employer. What are some lessons learned? And when I mean, just to be clear, when I'm saying lessons learned, I'm like, no. I'm just saying, I think you guys are actually answering it better than I'm asking in terms of like, what can the game master do to build a redemption arc or to change the world around the characters? Maybe put them, now they're always running from somebody or whatever. The point being, you failed, you've got a bad reputation now. What are some lessons? How can you handle that setback, and what are some lessons you can learn from it? I'll start sticking with you, Brian, for now.
Hold on. Say it again.
Basically, so the question is, how do seasoned players handle setbacks or character failure in a productive way? What lessons can be learned? And this one, the topic is just a bad reputation. You somehow gave yourself a bad reputation.
So the problem is, I don't think there's necessarily much a player can do, because that's essentially getting into the realm of the game master. The player could try, they've got a bad reputation. They could say, oh, well, everybody thinks that I'm the big violent guy, but I'm going to go around and I'm going to pet all the cats that I see in the game, to try and make people think that I'm just a big softie. Well, the problem is that the player can say whatever they're going to say, but it kind of comes down to the game master. What are the situations that he's putting in front of them? Is he trying to give them that redemption arc? A player may want it, but it may be unfortunately that doesn't work in the story, and the game master's not giving it to them. So it's going to take some buy-in. It's going to take some work, where maybe you have to have a recap session or something, something where instead of playing this week, maybe we have to stop and kind of, like a mid-campaign session 0 to try and figure out where we're going to take this now that things have changed.
Okay. Actually, I think I do disagree with you a little bit on this one. Good. We can have some disagreement on here. I think that there are definitely some lessons that can be learned from that. Number one, if you've got a problem player in the group who keeps playing characters that are getting you in this trouble, you need to sit him down and say, y'all got to stop doing this. Well, it's fun for me. Well, it's not fun for the rest of us because, we're trying to do something else. We're not trying to be douche-nozzles. We have a paladin, a cleric, and a neutral good fighter, and here you are causing problems everywhere. That's just not how this works for this group. So either you make a new character or you go. I'm being a little extreme there, but I'm just pointing. That's a lesson that can be learned, that maybe you need to make a character that's a little more inviting. Characters are constantly chased. They go places and everything costs more. Oh, we've heard of you. No, we don't serve your kind here. And they want to make amends. They want to make the effort to, and like you said, it's up to the game master. While that's true, I would just argue that any game master who didn't accommodate that I'm not saying you have to throw out all the hooks in front of the players, but any game master who didn't accommodate is just a bad game master. Let them try to earn that back. Now, some people aren't going to believe it. Oh, you're just paying us off because you want people to think you're better. There's always going to be doubters. I mean, look at modern politics, right? It doesn't matter what certain people do. They're always right or they're always wrong, depending on your point of view. So that's just going to happen. Some people, the earth is always going to be flat. So I think the lessons that you can learn is like, maybe next time, if we're put in that same situation, we can handle things differently. Maybe we do a little more investigation to find out if this guy's on the up and up and isn't going to screw us over. Oops. Yeah, maybe it was just a bad die roll that got in the way. Again, I don't think one bad die roll should ever screw over a party for a long term. I think that should be multiple bad dice or bad choices or a combination thereof of the players. But again, you can learn that maybe we should take a step back if we have the opportunity to do so and think things forward a little more before we, take a certain action. So I think there are lessons that you can learn from that. And I think a bad reputation is something that has often failed. I mean, my first two that I put on here were failed mission, quest, adventure, delve, whatever, and character death, because those are the ones that people can think of instantly. But what about the bad reputation? What about getting on the wrong side of the clergy in a game like D&D where you want healing spells or you want healing potions, whatever? I mean, I don't know how everybody runs their games differently, so I'm kind of generalizing here, but your patron that you've been quote unquote getting quests from, using a computer game analogy, for a while. You messed him over, whether intentionally or unintentionally, whether you thought you were helping him and found out, oops, you were wrong, or you just made a dumb move. You can use those things to teach social dynamics, or they can just not care and they can kill him, whatever. And that changes the world. But there is a lesson you can learn from that as a player character, and not just, don't do that again, but it's more of like, how could we have done this differently? It's actually, where I work, it's called wargaming out the session. What if we had done this? What if we'd done that? You can call it theory crafting. You can call it brainstorming, whatever. It's just something you can take away from that, how you could have done things differently, and maybe you try to do it differently next time. Thoughts?
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So now let's flip this completely to the player side. Ignore remove the word character from your vernacular now. Well, maybe. What and how can players learn from a failed campaign or table in order to improve their gameplay? Now, player in this case can include both game masters and players, but the game master one is so easy, I'd really like to focus on what players can learn from a bad table. And we'll start with, I don't remember who I started with last time, so I'm just going to keep going with Brian.
All right. I think one of the most important things is you can learn what kind of games you like.
Mm-hmm.
If the GM is running a heist game and you don't enjoy it, you've gone, say you played out the campaign and you finally got the MacGuffin, but you didn't have fun. Well, maybe ask for a more dungeon crawl or hack and slash kind of adventure. Get an idea of what are the things that you enjoy playing. Now, that doesn't mean that you always have to get your way, but when it comes down to session 0 or prepping, for the next stage of the campaign, don't be afraid to speak up and ask for something else.
Okay. Yeah. Nope, those are more answers than anything else. So I'll Malachi, same question for you. What and how can players learn from a failed campaign or table in order to improve their gameplay?
Well, I mean, one thing is you can always learn is sometimes you're just not the right fit for the table. And you learn, the kind of people that you gel with, that you can game with easily. And also I think a big thing is, you're learning how to identify the problems when they arise so you can be proactive if there is an issue. It's a big issue for you.
Can you name a table that you were at that was a failed table, whether it was one that didn't last long or one that just, this sucks, we're done, or whatever? Okay, we've all had bad tables. Come on now.
Yeah, I mean,
The Rando RPG stream. I mean, no.
Oh man.
I mean, there was a bad player was gaming with for a bit, and I got to the point where it's like, guys, it's either me or him, and they chose him.
Okay.
And when you have a person that says, I'm an asshole and I'm proud of it, and he takes that into the game, it was just, I just got tired of him.
Yeah, never wear the "I'm an asshole" as a badge of honor. I know a lot of us say it. I think it's more tongue in cheek than anything else. But if you really wear this as a badge of honor, then you need to go watch the first video in the series because we talk about have decorum and some manners and so forth.
Yeah.
So I'll just go ahead.
I was gonna say, I heard about how the game went, and I'm kind of glad I never got involved in that game because, oh man, the GM was such a rules as written GM that at one point this is a GURPS game, at one point a player jumped on a grenade and he rolled a really low damage and the character survived. And he got upset about it. That shouldn't have happened. Well, you could have made it happen.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a good game master will roll those punches and be like, you land on the grenade, it starts to scoot away a little bit, it explodes, you take a lot of the energy, but you could find ways of why it anyway.
Yeah, there was. I'm kind of glad that I didn't end up playing that game.
So one of the things that I put down for a note for me is I think a lot of dungeon masters don't ask for help. I as players we might, but as game masters, I feel, and everybody says that they're the exception to the rule. Maybe you are, but in my experience, game masters and dungeon masters don't ask for help. They might accept your unsolicited advice as like, okay, yeah, I might think about that, but very rarely do they go, my table isn't doing so well. This something isn't right here. What do I need to do to fix it? Or when they find out what they need to do to fix it, and this is what I'm guilty of, they're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I will openly state one more time my Earthdawn example of that. The last campaign, not the last game, but the last campaign I tried to run was a failure. After being out of the hobby for the most part, again, I hate saying I'm out of the hobby because I was never really out of it. But after taking, say extended breaks between playing and running, what I didn't realize about this critical role stuff. I didn't realize how things had changed with regard to, like in chat, people are like, I'd never play an 8-hour session. That's all I ever did. Again, all over the world. I seriously, until I started YouTubing, I thought everybody played the way I played because I found groups like that in multiple states, in multiple countries. Like, it's weird to me that people don't, do that. Now, 4 hours? I'm not doing anything for 4 hours. Why would I do that for 4 hours? Well, because it's a commitment. We want to have things actually move along. Believe me, I play, even though it's similar, like Bears game, there are things that I skip in Bears game because I know we only have 3 to 4 hours that I would normally want to address as a player or character or whatever. And that's fine. I mean, the game's great. I'm just saying that for me, I feel, especially as a game master, that it's like, God, I want to accomplish more things in this in a year's time or 2 years' time, for this campaign. And talking to this, I don't have that kind of attention span. You know what my first answer was when they started telling me things like that? Oh, then this isn't the hobby for you. like that. That's like, how can you not? Like, I only have 2 hours. You can't play in 2 hours. I'm sorry. I know a couple people in chat said that they do it. I don't get it. Maybe you found a way that secret sauce, but 2 hours, that's barely getting at the table, moving 10 steps forward and calling it a day. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. I also, they kept saying, what do you want us to do? What? I want you to play your character. But what do you want my character to do? What? And it's because, and I didn't understand this weird difference at the time, they were really into the story gaming. They wanted me to create a plot that dragged them along tooth and nail, and I was just putting out hooks out there that they could follow. and they wanted to be handheld. I'm like, no, that isn't. I guess that's a way to play, but I'm not running like a module. I'm running something where I want you to go in the direction that you want to go in. It wasn't pure sandbox, but it was sandboxy enough, and they didn't get it. And they kept asking, what do you want us to do? What do you want us to do? And then I said, okay, I want them to learn the game a little bit. Remember when we were talking about the game aspect of it? I want them to learn the game aspect of it a little bit better. So I gave them legend points when they did certain things. The warriors, I gave combat-oriented stuff like giving ground or aggressive attack. The casters, if you use multi-thread weaving, if you use, I forget what all of them were, but so you know what they were doing? They played it like a computer game. Okay, the next thing I need to do, okay, I'm going to do give ground. Like you went from being really weird about wanting to, be your character in this world and the games gets in the way to now you're just gamifying. What do you want me to do? I want you to play your character as the character exists on this world. And so I had to end it. It was failed. I wasn't willing to budge because this is how I do it. This is how I've always done it. So I went back and this is when I started watching videos and learning things. And this is really when I got really into the whole woke nonsense that's taken over, the whole 5e, when we really first started ranting and raving and so forth about this years ago, when I was still in Germany, come to find out that morons had come into the hobby and tried to change it. And not only demanded that, hey, you play this way at the table, but that everybody plays that way. And people kept citing Critical Role. I was like, what the hell is a Critical Role? And I looked at them like, that's not what a real game looks like. I don't have to tell you. At that time, I didn't know. I mean, are they actors? Are they scripting this? I don't. But that isn't right. That isn't how a real game goes. And so I had to look at how things had changed. And so what's the lesson learned that I got from that is that, excuse me, there are parts of the modern style of play that I can latch onto and encourage people. Okay, but there's still parts I'm like, nope. And you, if you're going to sit at my table, I now know that I have to express this to you, that these are my expectations at the table, whether that's what you've seen in your Critical Roles or not. Now, a lot of that's that's called session 0. I get that, but I didn't even know the term session 0 at that point. Because to us, it's just session 0 is like, hey, Brian, you wanna roll up some characters for a D&D game I'm running? like. Oh, that's got a name now? Okay, fine. I'll use the name. I actually think it simplifies stuff. But I hope you guys get what I'm saying with that. And I'm going to end with this term, and then I'm going to let you guys comment however you want to comment with this. This is a great term that I'm going to start using. There's session 0, right? My coworker told me that he calls this end of campaign session Omega. I love you got the 0 and the O. Session 0, session Omega. And really, it's the end of campaign follow-up. Like, okay, guys, what made this fail? What do I need to learn as a game master? What do I need to express better next time to run the type of game I want to play? Or do I need to be the game master that actually comes and asks you what you want to do and just do it? I will never be that game master because there's certain types of game styles I can't do well.
Yeah.
So no, you're going to play the type of game I can run, but have that session Omega where you clear the air on everything, and we never had that. So Malachi, I know I laid out a lot there, but I did that intentionally because I wanted to show that it's like 5-6 years ago now, but my last full-on campaign that I tried to run with multiple sessions ended in failure, and I had lessons I needed to learn from that. Any commentary you want to give on, it doesn't have to be on necessarily my thing, it can be though, but on players and groups and how we can learn things from this stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take something that Rex Teal says in chat. I mean, a player learning, maybe I can do a little bit better and takes that step and becomes a GM for the first time, because of a failed campaign.
I mean, I think that. Sorry, Malachi.
No, it's good. But I mean, they're saying that in 5e, they're saying there's a DM shortage, and maybe that's, maybe a couple failed campaigns, you can get more people giving it a shot. I don't know how it is on the other side of things.
I think the problem with too many failed campaigns is that I think that would end up actually driving more people out of the hobby. It's like, you're going to have too many people getting frustrated because they're even despite Critical Role, at the end of the day, hey, we're going to play this game where you get to go on an adventure and you get to be the hero. Well, at some point, the characters have to do something heroic. And so if it's just failure after failure after failure, they're going to be like, you know what, this sucks. This isn't any good. So I think while the Session Omega, I think, is a good idea, especially if the campaign just completely failed out, I think it's actually a little bit more important that, kind of going back to what I was saying, where like after every single session that we play, Bear always asks, hey, what was your favorite moment in the game?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We don't necessarily need to be asking for criticism after every session, but there needs to be that open communication. If something didn't work, if you didn't like something during the session, you need to go to your game master. You need to say, you know what, I think this was a problem. Now, he doesn't necessarily have to agree with you, but there has to be that open line of communication between the players, between the GM, of, hey, I think this is a problem. I think we need to address something before that campaign fails.
Because you have to be willing to speak up, but you also have to be willing to listen.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Be willing, be open to any kind of criticism.
It's funny because Bear does it. I do something. I do it a little differently, but I do something similar in mine. I do open it up for the criticism. I ask people, so what did you like? What did you dislike? What are things I could have done better? What are things that you think I should do more of? Whatever. And I get that information. I always do that after I hand out the XP, just to make sure that it doesn't influence the amount of XP I give them. But I think that is absolutely important. So what about just, especially with like a newer game master, with any game master, is patience.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not going. So for example, I might not be at a table that I think is the best table ever. Let's use this because he plays different. He just completely plays differently than me. I sit at Bruce's table and I'm gonna be in that game. I mean, personally, I just wouldn't last long because it would drive me nuts. But I want to be there, and I want to have the Bruce skirmish experience. Well, I need to have some patience with Bruce. Not to be fair, Bruce is going to have some patience with me as I'm used to doing things differently. So I think that there's a level of patience that everybody needs to have, whether it's a new game master, a new player, or a new setting. Even, just to lock it down. New characters. Sometimes you have to have patience with new characters. Look at John's character in the Played in Fantasy game.
Yeah.
We're I know it's called session 2, but it's our third playthrough session. It's like, Jesus, dude, and I'm not blaming John at all. I'm not blaming John at all. But it's like at some point here, you got to tone that crap down because we're gonna throw you in the ocean and leave you sit there. But my point being is we got to have some patience. Bet you that character grows. We've only had about 9, maybe 10 hours of play so far. For me, that's one session. For our game, that's 3 sessions. So there's definitely time for his character to grow, or us to accept, that's just what De Veers does, whatever. Things can grow. Have a little patience. Don't just be, Brian said something I didn't like, or his character did something I didn't like, so this is stupid, blah, blah, blah. Or, Game Master made me roll for something dumb. This is a horrible game. Have a little patience.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, I am looking for follow.
Go ahead.
Well, no, but it exactly. I mean, you're right about it requiring some patience on everyone. I think one of the keys is how they always talk about with feedback, critique in private and praise in public.
Yeah.
And like, that's why I kind of like at the end of the session, hey, I'd like to know what you did well. Come to me afterwards, after we're all gone, if you have any criticisms. Okay. Because, number one, if you come to me so I'm the GM, I did something that one person didn't like, but the rest of the group did. Well, if you're coming to me in private, number one, you're not necessarily going to be, quote unquote, contaminating the other players with something negative.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
But if it is something that's negative and the whole group like suddenly Cody's coming, Bear's coming, Max is coming, and they're all saying this was a bad thing, but they're not necessarily coming at it as a group. Number one, I'm going to be a little less defensive.
Yeah.
And number two, it's like, wait a second, all of these guys just hit me up about this. This is a problem. Whereas if it's in a group and, nobody's necessarily speaking up, because like me, I'm not very confrontational. If it's the end of the session and somebody is jumping in on the GM, I may not necessarily agree, but I may not necessarily jump in, to back them up. And the GM can take
let's
that
flip
as
that
maybe
around.
I'm supporting
I'm
it.
very confrontational. And so, like, my initial reaction is, screw you.
I would never have guessed you were.
I know, right? But no, and the reason I'm saying that is, if you talk to me one-on-one, I might be more amicable to that. I might not be as defensive. And I know it's something that, like, I have to tell me with that whole patience, like, whoa. They're giving you constructive criticism. Just don't let the ego get in the way,
Right.
So different people. So either way, my point is that coming to somebody one-on-one, critique in private, is probably in most cases the better way to go, unless it's something really egregious, like talking about what we were talking about earlier, player actions or an essay or something that's making everybody uncomfortable at the table. At some point, you just got to say, knock it the hell off.
Yeah, I mean, especially if it's something where, like it's an in the moment. If we don't stop this now, it's going to get potentially worse. Absolutely, speak up. But yeah, if it's just how do we avoid the campaign failing, or how do I figure out what to do better? Don't. Again, it just comes down to you have to be respectful. You have to be communicating.
Okay.
If you're not doing it, it's not going to work.
All right, the last little note I had on here, and then we're already 16 minutes over the allotted time for the show. So, and that's the allotted max time for the show. So, there's also mentorship, and I kind of mentioned it before with, DMs should be willing to ask for advice / help. Let the ego drop a little bit. And it's not necessarily like, oh, you're better than me, Brian. Oh Lord, Brian, please tell me how to. No, it's like, you do things differently. How would you handle this situation?
Mm-hmm.
You handle, I'm kind of at a conundrum here. This is going south. This is going left. It's just not going the way I want. What would you do to get it back on track? Crap, I didn't think about that. Or, I thought about that, but I wasn't sure it was going to work. Maybe I will do that. Something that, I don't agree with you completely, but you just gave me an idea that I can use instead. It's okay to ask for advice. None of us are perfect. None of us are the best game masters ever, whether we think so or not. So I think that a little bit of, in this asking for help, my word here is mentorship, because I was looking at the player side of it. Maybe mentor another player to be a game master.
Yeah.
Maybe mentor a new game master to be a better game master. But throw the egos aside, and that's why I like this format that we're doing here, because it allows Brian, Malachi, whomever else is on here. So, like, I really want people that have opposite views on here to show that no, you don't have to do it Brian's way, you don't have to do it Max's way, you don't have to do it Malachi's way, you don't have to do person who's in here, Crafting Gamers way. That's going to be, as this series grows and gets better, that's going to be so important, where we can learn from each other. And I might sit here and say, 100 times out of 100, nope, I would never do that. It's still going to be in the back of my craw. Still going to be like, no, I'm never going to do that until I do. Like, I'm that guy that will openly never admit that I changed my mind because of you. But you'll see it. Like, I remember a year ago and you said you would never do this, and yet here you are. Shut up. So, all right. Final comments from you guys on failing forward, whether it's as player characters or as a group table that you want to get out there. Also, since this is the last video in the segment, go ahead and shout out your channels one more time. I already have your links in the description, but go ahead and shout out your channels. And so final comments and shout outs, and then we're done with this portion.
All right. So again, Gaming with ADHD, come check us out. I'll get back to posting regular videos eventually, but that's a separate issue. But as far as failing, don't be afraid to fail. It's fine. Learn something from it. And actually, and a bigger thing is, when you fail, try to ask what you can learn from it. Don't just assume that there's nothing to learn, because I guarantee you there's something.
Or that everybody else around you is wrong and you were right.
Yeah.
That's me. Malachi, final comments and shout out your stuff.
It's okay to fail. I mean, Captain America was frozen in ice for how long? And he had a big adjustment period. So it's okay to fail. My blog, I'm gonna try and keep watch an episode a week of Fallout and keep reviewing it, and hopefully in between talk about this amazing game called Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland. If you like old school Genesis gaming, this may scratch an itch on your tabletop.
Wait, Genesis as in the Genesis system with the funky dice?
No, as in the Sega Genesis.
Oh, okay.
It's an old school game.
All right, so with this new format here, just so folks know, this is the end of segment 4. I want to thank everybody for being here. I hope you liked these 4 topics as we got through it. We can always approach this again if you think there's something we didn't cover. I've got almost 40 topics to cover, so I'm good for like the next year on topics that we can cover. And next week is going to be on the GM's journey. This one's going to be hopefully we'll see GM Cody here because he wanted to talk about that, and we kind of scheduled that for next week. And we'll hopefully have a couple other people on here to talk with him. And so we started off with the first episode was on basically pregame, how to get people in the hobby. This one is how to be a good player. Well, the next one's going to be the GM's journey, which is somewhat going to be about how to be a good game master. What have game masters learned? How do you start from dumb to expert, and so forth. So hopefully you guys are here for that next week. If you like this format, let me know. And the rest of this live stream is going to be for members only. Now, if you're watching live, you're okay. Don't go anywhere. But it's not going to be on video later unless you're a member. So there we go. And I hope to see everybody next time around. So thank you very much.